All right, you're here. What do you want?
All right, I just want to talk to you about your perspective on basically the castle doctrine.
Okay, go for it.
All right, so you believe that if somebody breaks into your house, you are morally right in absolutely murdering them.
Assuming, yes. If as long as they're not like, if there's any chance that they can like present a danger to you, yeah. So like if somebody like breaks into your house, but it's like a 4-year-old, you probably should murder a 4-year-old. If somebody breaks into your house and then they're asleep on your couch, you probably shouldn't walk down and shoot them on your couch. So yeah. So like whatever the reasonable interpretation of that is, but yeah.
Okay, so you do believe that you should have to justify the level of threat involved.
Yeah, but I'm very, very, very generous on that, if that makes sense. You can give me hypotheticals if you want to go from there so that we can be sure we're talking about the same thing.
I don't have necessarily a specific hypothetical, but my problem is if you're generous with that, that encourages people to kill the person that is breaking into their house.
Sure.
Because the problem is murdering them obviously, takes away their testimony.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I guess it does. Well, rip, better not break into people's houses then, I guess.
No, I mean, I think it's crazy that you find it, like, your social contracting memes, right?
Yeah.
But, like, somebody breaks into your house and immediately the entire social contract meme is revoked.
I mean, I consider breaking into somebody's house to be, like, one of the largest affronts that you can do to another person's autonomy. I mean, you're invading their personal space. You could be doing it with lethal force. They don't know if you know that or not. They don't know what your intentions are. And you could oftentimes have a family at stake as well. So, yeah, I consider breaking into somebody's house to be, like, a really, really, really big deal. Like, one that would make, like, lethal force easily justified. On the flip side of that, if I were to break into somebody's house, I would totally accept it if they'd kill me for it. I mean, I would be expecting that. Like, if I was breaking into somebody's house, I would be expecting to die if I got caught doing it.
Right. Okay, so what do you extend that to? So let's say you have a property, right, with grass, and then you have a fence up with a sign on it that says trespassers will be shot. Somebody jumps that fence. Do they lose their right to life?
I guess this would probably be different if you're talking about why does Twitch keep fucking up today? Holy shit.
It just really hates you, man. I think just wait 2 minutes and refresh and it should be fine.
I'm not having any problems on my end, guys. Nothing is wrong on my end. Everything looks perfectly fine. I don't know.
It's because by the time you refresh it, it's back up. But anyway.
Well, no, I'm just saying that I'm not like drumming anything. So I consider there to be differences in I guess like all personal property isn't necessarily the same. So for instance, like if somebody is like breaking into your farm, like if you go down and you hear somebody's like in the stables or they're like in your cornfield or like they're in your backyard shed, I mean, something like that, you probably shouldn't be killing somebody because they don't really represent like a danger to you such that they can kill you or your family. I guess I would probably be a little bit less likely there to say you should be allowed to kill somebody.
So, to me, from my perspective at least, it seems like you're drawing arbitrary lines.
Well, not really. I guess the line is more like, could this person represent like a physical threat to you or your family? And as soon as you like break into somebody's
and you said they do if they're not a 4-year-old person or if they're not unconscious. They could pose an imminent threat.
Yeah, so like if they're like an able-bodied person, I don't consider those to be arbitrary lines. If a 4-year-old walks up to me in real life, I think I can pretty resolutely say this guy doesn't really represent a threat to me. Or like if I hear like a window break downstairs and I go downstairs and there's like a 4-year-old, or I'm sorry, let's say like a 9-year-old came in because he threw a baseball through the window and he was trying to get it back. I don't think it's arbitrary to say that, well, this guy isn't representing a threat versus I see like a full-sized adult in my basement and it's like, okay, well, what the fuck? Like I think,
right, but I feel like there's a huge distinction between 4-year-old, full-sized adult, right? There's a lot of gray area in there. So there's a difference. Okay, so let's say 24-year-old, or okay, let's say a 64-year-old woman breaks into your house, are you morally justified in shooting that person?
Yeah, I would say so. When I say house, I just want to be clear, like breaking into like the area where you and your family sleeps or lives. Yes. Not like breaking into like a shed in the backyard or breaking into like your farm or your stables outside or something. Yeah.
Right. The reason that seems so problematic and arbitrary to me is, okay, so let's say, like I'm sure you, like many others, live in a house, right, where your bedrooms, where you sleep and your family sleeps, are very spread out from the entrance to your home. So why do you not have an obligation to as I was taught in my CCW class, to hunker down, to get into a room with your family and then have your door shut and locked, and then once they get through that door, then you're morally justified in shooting them? But why should you be able to seek them out in your house?
I guess so from like a moral or ethical point of view, I guess it's just like the way that I view it is that like if you're breaking into somebody's house, what if you stumbled onto like a family member that was like in another room, or what if you aren't all sleeping, or what if your rooms are separated? What if somebody sleeps in the upstairs and somebody sleeps in the basement or something like that? Or how do you know if they're not going to like wander upstairs and then come into your room? I guess like personally, I probably wouldn't go through my house looking for the person. That seems like a bad idea just from a survival point of view.
Of course, from a survival point of view, but I'm asking you, just morally, because you said if they break into your house, it's okay to kill them. So, it's, let's say it's just you and your wife, you're both in your room sleeping, you hear somebody break in, they've broken in, and they're in the house. Are you morally right in ending their life? If they make no attempt to come into your bedroom, or even upstairs for that matter.
Yeah, I'd probably still say yeah. Yeah, you're breaking into their shit. That's like, I consider that to be like a really, really, really big crime. Breaking into somebody's house.
I don't disagree with you, but you're saying that crime is so significant that it takes away their right to life.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. I think like that's one of like the worst things. Like this would be like a notch or two under like physical assault or rape. Like it would be like on that level to me, in my opinion. Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
You consider rape to be
or like heavy physical assault? Yeah. Breaking into somebody's house to steal their shit, and while being there, being a totally unknowable factor of, is this person going to come and kill me? Yeah, I would put it on that level, or not on that level, but like very close. You're like a step or two away from being on that level. Like if I was upstairs,
you must assume that most people breaking into a house intend to just steal some things to go pawn.
Yeah, but the problem is that like generally when I'm in my house, if I'm in my house, okay, and I'm not trying to appeal to emotion, I'm just being reasonable. If I'm in my house and I'm with my child, there is no chance that somebody in my house is going to come and kill my child. If somebody has shown that they have the propensity to break into my house and they're in my house, I don't know if that person is going to try to kill me, any loved ones, or my kid. I don't know. It's impossible for me to know. I do know that whoever's in my house has already shown that they have absolutely no regard for me or my property. So whether or not they're willing to come a little bit further or something could happen that would cause them to kill somebody is, I don't know. It's like, the problem is that they're putting me in a position where I can't possibly know the answer to that question, which kind of makes it like permissible.
No, you absolutely can. Yeah. You absolutely can. I understand the flaws, of course, with it, right? Like if you sleep in different parts of the house, if your family's, like if your kid sleeps downstairs, then obviously I see your point of view that obviously you're morally justified in shooting the person. Don't risk, having your son's life killed just because, this person's breaking into your house. But on the flip side, why don't you have any duty to retreat and make sure your family is safe?
I mean, I would have to think about this a lot more, but like duty to retreat from your own stuff that somebody's broken into to steal. Man, I might just be like really fucking salty, but so like the crimes against other people are things that I hold like in the people that do these crimes are the lowest fucking scum of the earth to me. Like if somebody wants to break in and steal your shit, I don't know if you have a moral obligation to just hand it over to them. Maybe that's...
You can call the police.
Well, no, your shit is gone. Your police are never getting to your house in time to stop a live burglary.
100%, but they're not going to clear out your house, right?
No, but they'll steal some of your shit. What if they took like my fucking saxophone or anything of my house that I've worked for in my life, and then I've stored it in my place that I've worked to build or to purchase, and they're in my house stealing my shit with no regard for myself. Like I'm just supposed to let that person walk away? I mean, like I guess I could argue that like if you could purchase...
The problem is you're placing a value of your stuff over their life. That's the problem.
Yeah, but it's not. Well, hold on, because that's not really true. I'm not saying that, like, if somebody were to say that I could sacrifice my saxophone to, like, save the life of an innocent person, like, I would probably do that 10 out of 10 times. Like, okay, well, here you go. Here's my sax, save the person's life. But more that they forfeit their right to life when they come into my property to steal my shit. I think that there's a distinction there. I mean, and you probably already kind of have. I'm sorry.
That's my problem, though. That's my problem is I absolutely see the distinction, right? They're obviously committing a crime, and obviously an egregious one, right? So one that violates your privacy, makes you feel very vulnerable, right? I've had my house broken into. But the problem is that you're saying that they forfeit their right to life because they're stealing your saxophone. And to me, that just sounds ludicrous.
I mean, it's my shit. What is the alternative?
The alternative is to let them steal your saxophone, dude. I don't understand how you say that, okay, my saxophone is worth their life now.
It's worth the life of somebody that wants to come in and try and steal it. Not the life. It's not like if I'm trying to draw the distinction. If there was a scale, my stuff isn't worth more than the life of another human. But if that human wants to come and steal that shit, well, yeah, now it kind of is. Because you've made...
I absolutely agree with you. Okay, they're committing a crime. That's different than, you trading it for somebody's life. That's different. But the thing is, you're saying that crime in itself forfeits their right to life. Them coming into your house immediately forfeits that right. And I'm trying to ask you, how do you morally justify that? They don't pose a threat to you. They pose a threat to what you've worked for, right? And I don't see how, you can be the executor, if you will. You're the judge, jury, and literally an executioner in this case.
I mean, I guess, like, if there was some, like, magical way to determine under your hypothetical, you're talking about, like, knowing that somebody could break into your house and knowing that they aren't going to pose, like, a physical threat to anybody in your house. Like, if you could know those things for sure.
No, not at all. Not at all. Again, when I got my CCW in the state of Missouri, and we were taught the duty to retreat, right?
Well, but duty to retreat, that's in public places, though. That's not always that's not in your house.
No, you're right. It actually applies to states without the castle doctrine.
Sure.
You cannot do it. So, but anyway, I'm arguing morality-wise.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, because you're bringing up CCW training. I'm just saying it. Yeah, but go ahead.
Well, that's good because that's where I learned about the duty to retreat, right?
Okay.
Like, you're just supposed to go get your family and bring them. Like, that's just the safest way to do it, right? Like you said before, it's the safest way. You don't go hunting.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But so why don't you see that as a better alternative, and then losing some of your stuff?
Because I think that there's a philosophical difference between, this is kind of like, I want to say that this is kind of like what the spirit of the castle doctrine is about. Like, your house is your domain. And in the United States, private property is one of the most important rights that's endowed to us, well, given to us by God or whatever, that the government allows us to keep, right? That the private property is a really big deal. When somebody has made the decision to violate your personal private property, come onto your property, and then start arbitrarily removing shit from it against your will, this is a violation of your autonomy of, like, the highest kind. This is why I say I put this, like, on a notch or two. Like, if somebody is raping you, they're abusing your body and they're taking from it what they want without respect for your autonomy, oftentimes causing pain in the process. Same thing with physical assault or battery, right? But like, breaking into somebody's private property, which is an extension of yourself, to steal things that you've worked for, I consider this to be somewhat similar in those regards. Like, I think it's a really, really, really big deal. I don't consider it as just like a yard sale, like you've just got a collection of things and somebody walks up and steals it. I think violating the private property of another person is a really, really, really big deal. It's not just taking something.
Again, it seems like you're going back to the argument I was trying to make before, which was, okay, so somebody hops, you have a large property, somebody hops the fence, you have, various things on your property, just not inside your house. They steal some of those things. Do you have a right to take their life? Are you morally righteous in taking their life?
I would probably still sit on, like, on the executioner side of that, but then, like I said earlier, like, I guess when I speak of this, I speak to this when I say private personal property, I generally mean, like, where you and your family reside. Like I said, like, if you own, like, a farm and somebody is out, like, taking something, like, in a shed, like 10 miles away, or not 10 miles away, but, like, 100 yards away from your actual house where you sleep, maybe I would feel slightly differently about that. But even that, I'm not sure. It's just like, if there are two options available to you, and one is to let somebody break into your stuff, steal your stuff, and leave, versus killing them, it's like I lean on the side of like you should have the right to defend your property using lethal force.
I don't think anybody disagrees. At least I don't think most people disagree with you there. You absolutely have a right to defend yourself. The problem is when they're in your shed stealing things. Right. I don't believe that you have a right to defend your property via lethal force, which is what you're proposing.
Yeah. I guess it's just like if I had to choose between two worlds, in one world you just have to sit there and watch them steal your shit.
Not at all. You have a police force.
The police is not relevant in this discussion. If somebody is on your property stealing something, the police are never getting there in time to give a fuck. You've got like what?
No,
like,
that's absolutely true. But again, you're okay. So I don't see this happening in other countries where they don't have guns everywhere, right? In Japan, where if somebody breaks into your house, you're not going to get all your shit stolen, right? So
sure.
I'm just curious how you make this moral leap. Right? Because you're super hard on the social contract meme. So it was really surprising to hear you say if somebody comes in onto your property, especially in a shed that's not even attached to your house. So it's not even about personal safety at this point. You just care about that saxophone.
Well, but I mean, I would view this the same way. If I'm breaking into somebody's place, I fully expect to be murdered for what I'm doing. Like, I would fully expect that to be a possible consequence of what I'm doing. Like, I consider this to be a crime. Like, this is like when you say this, like, you're big on the social contract stuff, so I'm really surprised that you think that, like, somebody should be able to stab you in the neck just because you try to rape somebody. Like, I would say that, well, if I'm in the process of raping somebody, I fully expect them to use lethal force to try to get me to stop. Like, much the same way that if I were to break...
Self-defense. That's self-defense. You're attributing personal property into
to personhood.
I'm self-defending my property. I'm self-defending my saxophone.
I guess like maybe I have like a really, really high regard for personal property. Like I would view those as almost like an extension of your person. Like if somebody is like breaking onto your private property and stealing your private property, that's like a violation of your autonomy to some extent.
No, I would agree with that, but I think you must concede then, though, it's not about your family's personal safety anymore. It's now about your private property. That's what you're defending.
Yeah, sure. Maybe those are different arguments, sure. But yeah, but I think I would still maintain the same for defending your property too. Yeah.
Okay, so again, back to the jumping the fence example. You were sort of wishy-washy on it before. So
yeah, I'm wishy-washy, but I'd say I would lean on the side of the executioner. I mean, like I don't like killing people or advocating for people to be killed. So I mean, like if it's avoidable.
But what I'm trying to relate to you is that of course it's avoidable. You're saying between these two choices, should I lose some things that have material value, right? And I'm not trying to trivialize that. Of course, it's an egregious crime, and of course that's why it's a felony. But the problem is, you're saying that leap makes they lose their right to life at that point.
Yeah.
Because they broke into your farmhouse.
Yeah.
How do you morally justify that?
Because they're breaking into my shit. Fuck them. Listen, you're from Missouri. You know this shit. Somebody broke into your stables.
Of course I do. Of course, yeah. But again, to me, it's about self-defense. If they pose a threat to me or my family, that's a different story. But if they're in my house to steal my computer, I don't see that I'm justified in killing them. I guess it's just a fundamental, different viewpoint we have. But I don't see how you can morally justify that just because somebody's coming on your property to steal something. You don't have any obligation to seek, government assistance in stopping them from doing that. You just go out and shoot them.
Yeah, I mean, well, like, so basically the choice is like watching them carry your shit away versus killing them. Yeah, I don't know. I guess like maybe this is like a big American meme that I have or whatever. But I don't know. I'm really, 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 really big on personal property. So I understand what you're saying. This is a distinction from like the self-defense or family thing, right? So maybe this argument is a little bit less tenable or appears that way. So I think we can agree that there's a distinction there. But I still think that I would fall on the side of like if somebody were to so a guy breaks into your backyard and is in your shed, like stealing your shit. Like, do you have a right to take a firearm out and go fuck him up? Yeah, I think like I think I would still fall on the like, yeah, you do have the right to do so.
Qualifies them.
And the only moral justification you have for that is that you're personal property is what you worked for.
Well, that when you intentionally violate the personal property and autonomy of, and I would say that violation of that property is to some extent violating the autonomy of another person. When you do that, you're forfeiting like any claim you have to being treated in any kind of like ethical way, or that you're removing yourself from like ethical or moral. There's a word I'm looking for. Consideration at that point.
I don't want to be a repeat JonTron, but I mean that just sounds like a lot of filler for they just deserve, or not deserve, but they just lose their right to life at that point, right?
Yeah, like sure, yeah.
They're exchanging their social contract. They're
cashing it in. Yep.
Yeah, but I see that as you're just conflating two different things. They're not threatening your personal bodily autonomy, right?
Not your personal bodily autonomy, no. But I consider personal property to be a really big deal, and that threatening that of somebody else's is a really, like, one of the greatest crimes. I think that's a really, really, really big deal. Yeah.
Okay, so your car is parked in a mall, right? And somebody walks up and they're going to key your car. Are you morally justified in shooting that person?
Keying your car?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Okay, what if they break all 4 windows?
Break off 4 windows. Where exactly would the line be? What about if like they get in your car and they're driving it away? I think I would be like more on the side of the person on that one. If somebody was like breaking into your car to like drive away with your car, maybe. Breaking your car. Okay, so, if I saw somebody, man, I don't know. Maybe. I'm not sure where that exact line would be. I don't know. But like if a kid was like standing outside your house like and they threw an egg at your window, I don't think you can like take out like your sniper rifle and like 50 cal his head off or something.
Of course, I mean we've already made that distinction. There's a difference between a kid and an adult.
Or I'm sorry, like even an adult like throwing an egg at your property. I don't know if like damaging something from the outside would necessarily be. I don't know. I would have to find the distinction in there. But like wherever this line is, it's way, way, way past breaking into somebody's property and like stealing their shit. I guess I would have to like think more a little bit like on where this exact line is. But that line is probably even before like getting into your car and driving it away. Like I think requesting somebody or compelling somebody to give up their property to a thief is that's for me, that's an unacceptable request that I could never morally compel somebody to say, listen, you just have to let them drive away with your car because it's not right for you to stop them using lethal force. You just have to give it up. I don't believe that that's a request that I could make of somebody or that should be made of somebody.
But that's why you have car insurance, right? Is it like...
Fuck no. I don't have full coverage car insurance just so I can kill somebody if I see them driving my shit away.
That's what I thought.
I'm sorry. Right, well, I guess like maybe you could so okay, so like let's back up a little bit. Maybe you could augment this argument a little bit with like a with like a reasonable force thing. So for instance, if I see somebody trying to break into my car, you could make the argument that I need to make a reasonable effort, which I guess would be determined by jury, to try to get them to stop before just taking out my. So like I wouldn't like sit at the entrance to Walmart, wait for somebody to try to open my car door, and then like take aim with my 8 times magnification scope and shoot them. But I would make like a reasonable effort, like hey, get the fuck away from my car, right? Much the same way that if somebody's like in my backyard breaking into my shed, maybe I should make like a reasonable effort to be like, hey, get the fuck off of my property, get away from my shit. Maybe you could argue that like a reasonable effort there needs to be made, sure. Once they're inside the house with your family, I think that threat level rises significantly, and then you're moving back into that self-defense family bullshit area. But that on maybe if it's just related to property,
if they're inside your house, I think absolutely you can make an argument in court that your life was in danger.
Well, and then to be careful, we're talking about ethics, not necessarily like what would work in court, but like
right.
Sure.
But I mean, I'm not trying to draw that ethical line there, but I mean, I think ethically you should have to justify that level of threat, right? So I think you should have to justify that you felt like your life was threatened, and of course you just extend that to property. But then you just say you should make a reasonable effort to stop them from doing that?
I mean, like, if you're just talking about property being fucked with and your life isn't actually in danger, I guess I could say, yeah, you should probably make, like, a reasonable effort to make them stop before, like, killing them.
Okay, so what if they're stealing something? Do you have a reasonable effort?
If they're stealing stuff and they don't stop, then yeah, they get the bullet.
No. I'm saying about a reasonable effort. Like, okay, what should you just yell at them, and if they run away, are you still okay with shooting them with what they've already stolen, or?
Oof. Yeah, fuck. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I'm sorry. I guess like to expand on this a little bit because it's a pretty extreme point of view. You're like stuff that you've acquired, the stuff that you own in your. This is just how I view it. And I understand not everybody might not agree with this, but like if you have something, it represents like. Do you ever watch Outlaw Star?
Never.
Okay, an Outlaw Star, he's got like a special gun and it can load shells into it, and they're called caster shells. And every time he shoots it at an enemy, it like takes away some of his life force. Okay, in order for the gun to function, right? I feel like in real life, your possessions are things that represent hours of your life that you've spent working to acquire. And not just like going to the store and buying them, but let's say you have like a $900 phone or an $800 phone, right? You've spent, potentially 100 hours or hundreds of hours with tax included maybe working at a place to acquire these possessions. These are things that you own. You've given your life. Literally, hours of your life have been poured into acquiring these things. For somebody to walk up and to presume on you and to just take that, to rip that away from you, I view that as like an affront of one of the absolute worst kinds of things that you could do to people. Stealing somebody's possessions, to me, is like one of the worst things that you can do to somebody. It's not just like, I guess like some people just view it, or maybe people view possessions in like different ways, but like to walk up to somebody and to tear away hours of their life that they've spent trying to procure something, and then feeling like that person should be able to leave with their life intact, like I don't know, it's one of the worst things to me.
That's where the problem. That's exactly where I think we have a problem. Is you say they have a right to leave with their life intact. So again, like something that I worked, thousands of hours for. If somebody, stole, my car, do I have a right to shoot them? I'm not saying they lose. It's just baffling to me that they lose their right to live, to continue living. Because I
don't know. I mean, like maybe you could augment it more with income too. I don't know. Like if I saw somebody stealing like my phone,
so there's a monetary value to it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Like if somebody stole my phone or some shit, then for me it doesn't really matter. Like I'll go do a sponsored deal and I'll buy another phone like in an hour.
Doesn't it matter a lot more to a poor person than a rich person?
Yeah, well that's what I'm saying. Like
that's
for instance,
more arbitrary.
Well, it is a little arbitrary, sure, but I mean like you're trying to draw these lines of arbitrary where I'm way past the point. Like we can argue over like at what point should the person be killed, but that's like definitely like in the equation. Like when I was in high school, when I was in college, somebody broke into my car in a parking garage and they stole my stereo and my shitty fucking $800 saxophone. I had worked like dozens and dozens of hours between fucking McDonald's and my other job to get that stuff. Like this was like hours and hours of my life, and somebody to just walk in and take that from me with no recourse, with nothing that I can do except go back to my car and see my stereo and my saxophone missing, that somebody could do that to me. I absolutely, and I'm not trying to make it personal, but like to somebody who's put hours into acquiring something in their life, for somebody to just walk in and rip that away from you, I think that's punishable by death. I think that if the person catches you in the act of performing that thievery,
that's an insane leap that it's punishable by death.
Well, okay, when I say punishable by death, I don't mean like they catch you, like the police catch you and they execute you, but I mean like if you as an individual walk in on somebody stealing your shit,
instead. You're doing the police's job instead.
Because it's different, because when somebody's in the process of doing. Well, it's different because like the police have the ability to restrain somebody responsibly, to take them to a court system and put them through trial. That's different. Like an individual doesn't have the ability often to safely capture somebody, to call in backup to make sure that their life is protected while they're going through the process of arresting somebody and then processing them through the court system. Like
okay, why do you have a handgun instead of a taser?
Because I don't think tasers are very reliable, and because I don't think I can tase fucking 17 people at once like I can with my Glock 17. You know what I mean?
Okay, so you can't have both.
Well, real talk, I would never, just based on what I've seen of tasers, I would never trust my life with a taser ever. I would never try to tase somebody. Maybe if I watched more videos and became more educated on it, I would, but tasers seem really unreliable. And I think they're a little range capped as well.
Stun guns and bear mace is actually really, really reliable.
Stun gun sounds like you have to be right next to the person to do it though, right?
No, not the ones that shoot the little...
Well, those are like the taser things, right? When you say stun gun, I'm imagining the things that create the current, like right at the end of it.
I don't mean the thing you have to put up to their neck or whatever. Mm-hmm. From a distance, you can still pop them, right? It's just one person breaking into your shit, give a taser, right? Are you equally justified in pulling out either the taser or the gun?
I mean, I guess like theoretically, like I do believe to some extent, like in reasonable force, or not to some extent, I do like, I guess if you have the capability to be sure that you can like down somebody without killing them, then you probably have an obligation to do that first. It's just that it doesn't seem like that necessarily works in the real world. Like I said, I don't know. Like I've seen a lot of stuff on tasers that makes me I wouldn't trust it. And I think tasers are just like one-use things. Like if there's two people, unless you've got two tasers, right?
No, okay. So that's where we agree, and I think that's what I want. Is it just like there should be some hesitancy, right, to take somebody's life? There should be some like prior thought to it, not just this person is breaking into my car, their life is gone. I'm just going to pop a shot, right? I'm going to pop all 17 shots from your Glock and into their back, right?
Sure.
And then just worry about cleaning the blood from your car. You should have to do some moral consideration. Okay, can I scare this person off? Is my life in immediate danger, right? Are there other people around?
Yeah, and maybe a little bit.
To do any of that. You're just saying that
that's like
my personal property. I have a right to kill him.
Sure, and I understand, and I guess like I guess you could say like there's some moral consideration that goes in there, but like yeah, I don't know. I hold people that violate other people's like stuff. I hold those people in very, very like almost at like subhuman levels of regard. Like I have very, 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 very little respect for that person. Like on a like, do you deserve to live level? No, I think that stealing things is like one of the worst things you can do to somebody.
But you would agree though that the prison is for rehabilitation.
Yeah, but the state has the ability to enforce that type of stuff much differently than an individual does. Like an individual doesn't have...
No, absolutely.
Right. Like I don't have the obligation morally to rehabilitate somebody that's on my property taking my shit that I've worked for.
I don't disagree with you. Of course, you would turn them over to the state. You don't kidnap them and try to, reform them via Christianity or whatever the fuck you want to do. I'm saying that you should have an obligation to restrain them, to turn them over to the state, right? And if you cannot do that, then absolutely you can take their life, right? If you don't have the means to, get 3 people out of your house besides killing them, then obviously that's the only answer you have. But if you have the means to get them out of your house, you shouldn't be equally justified in murdering all 3 of those people.
Maybe, I don't know. I would have to think about it more, I guess.
Why do you even have to think about that?
Because stealing shit from people is like makes you a garbage fucking piece of shit that like doesn't get moral consideration from me. Fuck, I don't know. Like maybe that's just not fair to say. Like I don't know. I guess I will have to think about it more in the future. Like I really, 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 really don't like people stealing shit from other people. Like it's a huge trigger for me.
Nobody does. Of course, you're a subhuman, piece of shit if you break into somebody's house, let alone start stealing a really expensive property, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody disagrees with you there. The problem is that I'm just arguing that you should at least have to take some moral consideration and some hesitancy to just say their life is forfeited at that point. Because somebody has to be at a really dark place in their life to start breaking into your shit.
Yeah, but you have to be careful because again, like to not conflate these, the responsibility of the society is a lot different than the responsibility of the individual. Like, again, like going into the rehabilitation thing, like there are a plethora of reasons. The person breaking into my house might have ingested lead as a child that led them to be a low IQ thug in school, that led them to go through the criminal system, that led them into my house to steal my shit at that point. That's all possible. And from a societal class point of view, there are definite things that we should do to rectify those injustices. But I wouldn't burden an individual with a societal problem like that. I wouldn't say that just because society has the burden to rehabilitate or help these people.
Like I'm implying that that's what you should do?
Yeah, a little, yeah. When you say like, well, when you keep going back to like, well, rehabilitation, that person could be in a dark place. I don't care if that person is in a dark place.
No. My point with bringing that up is you're robbing them of any of that rehabilitation. Because you're taking their life.
Sure, of course. But what I'm saying is like the rehabilitation, that's just not a consideration of the individual at all. That's nothing that enters into their mind at any point, size, shape, or way ever. That's just not something that I would expect an individual to be concerned with. That's a problem of the state, in my opinion.
Right, and I just fundamentally disagree. I think, because you even seemed to sway on it earlier. You said that there should be some moral consideration. If you can stop these 3 people without killing them, you should consider doing that. So I'm just wondering, how much more should that be a priority than just?
I mean, I think you should, because it would be a nice thing to do, and because like a well-adjusted person would probably do it.
It's a nice thing to do to save their lives.
Yeah, it would be a nice thing to do. I mean, like I said, I would have to think about this like a lot more to like really know if this is like a line, because like if somebody killed somebody that was on their property and didn't give them that moral consideration, I don't think I would necessarily blame the person for doing something. Like, well, you shouldn't have killed those people. You should have like tried to shoo them off first. I'm not sure that wouldn't be my go-to instinct, which doesn't mean anything, right? Of course, but even like thinking on it more, I don't know if I would really ever say like, well, you should have tried more to get them off your property. Like,
I don't think anybody would say you should try more.
That's what you're saying. You're saying that like you should like shout at them or something.
Just make some attempt, right? Yeah, shout at them. If they continue, if they, again, if you feel your life is in immediate danger, right? Despite.
Yeah, but I'm not saying by life. I'm going by personal property as well. That's something that I would consider.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because your life doesn't even matter, or maybe your property matters. At
Sure.
This point.
Yeah.
So, again, like you're saying that, so it doesn't. There's literally no line. It's just as soon as somebody tries to take anything of personal property of yours,
fucking
they
pop
lose their
them.
right.
I think.
To me, that's morally reprehensible.
Well, I'm sorry. Don't cancel your sub.
So,
I'm a morally reprehensible person.
Line, right?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. What do you mean? Where do you draw the line for what?
Because where do you draw the line on that, right? So if somebody steals your car, obviously that's a shitload of money.
Mm-hmm.
But what if somebody just steals a tire off of your car? Are you okay killing them then?
Yeah, I don't know. You'd probably draw the line somewhere. Like if somebody like walked by your desk in the office and like stole your pencil, you're probably not like pulling out your gut and lighting them up. At least not unless it was a really expensive pencil. I mean, there's probably a line that you would draw somewhere. Sure.
That's a really weird thing to say. Okay, so if it's a really expensive pencil, then you're
what if it's like your great grandma's pencil, where like her ashes were made into the eraser?
No, but that's the thing. Things do hold sentimental value, and that's exactly what hurts most about having your house broken.
No, I don't agree with that. It's not just the sentimental value.
No, I mean, of course it's both, but I mean, there's certain things that can't be replaced, right? You can replace your saxophone, right?
Well, but not necessarily. Not without spending more hours of your life like working to replace it. Like,
well, I think this is off the topic anyway.
Uh-huh.
Like the point is, you are drawing this weird arbitrary line of, okay, there is a line somewhere of how expensive something is, and then you're okay to shoot the person.
Well, like, you keep saying that I'm drawing this arbitrary line, but I feel like we're way, way, way past, like, the important moral argument. Like, it kind of sounds like we're, I hate going back to the rape argument, or maybe we can do, like, the stabbing argument, where it's like, how bad of a stabbing is it? And then we're trying to argue, like, well, there's a big difference between being stabbed and it just cuts the skin versus, like, penetrates an organ. And it's like, okay, well, how important does the organ have to be? Like, it seems kind of arbitrary for, like, how bad the stabbing is. Like, okay, sure, but we're way past the point of the fact that stabbing somebody is, like, really morally wrong. Like, in terms of, like, how much do you have to steal for it to be considered like a really big problem? Well, I don't know. Like
let's go back to the stabbing. Let's go back to the stabbing.
Okay.
Because the stabbing's the problem because it can absolutely kill you. So you're absolutely in the right for shooting that person because they can kill you with a knife. If somebody draws a knife on you, you don't need to assess the damage after they
sure. I'm not talking about the fact that it's like a threat to your life. I'm just saying that like when we're arguing about like, well, it's kind of arbitrary where you draw like the exact property line. Like I agree with that I guess I would have to think a bit like on where exactly I want to draw the line. But that doesn't change the fact that like if somebody's on your property stealing anything, I think you're within your rights to kill them. Like in terms of like taking like a window off your car or like stealing something from your desk. I mean, I guess those things are probably a lot different. Maybe just because the value is different or it's not necessarily like on your personal property. So like maybe I would have to think like a little bit harder about that. But like somebody like stealing your car or somebody breaking into your house to steal your things, like those are easy, like get them out of here statements. Whereas I guess I would have to think a little bit more about other types of personal property.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could understand that perspective, absolutely. I would just disagree with it. But it just seems weird that, somebody's stealing, or you did start drawing a line, like you said, okay, well, if somebody stole my phone, it's whatever.
Well, I don't know about my phone.
Well, I mean, that's what you said.
Oh, I thought I said pencil.
No, I'm going back a lot.
No, I'm sorry. I just use my phone as an example where I'm like saying like now, like, because we were talking about the value thing. If somebody stole my phone now, I could just replace it because I've got a lot of money now. But I'm saying like if you're not necessarily like super wealthy, people stealing your shit is a really big deal.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that
Oh, I was saying earlier that like it might be possible to
personally as an
augment.
individual.
I'm saying that earlier. It might be possible to augment this based on like the income that you own. Like if we were taking like a purely hypothetical ethical approach, like for instance, if I had a shed in the backyard and it contained $1,000 and I was a multimillionaire and somebody came onto my property and I knew they were only trying to steal that $100 or $1,000, that maybe that would get some sort of different ethical consideration than like a poor family's house being broken into and somebody stealing their piggy bank. Like maybe that would be different. But I'm not sure. I'd have to think more about that.
Somebody stealing your life savings is absolutely, you have to, you do whatever you can to stop them because they're literally threatening your life at that point if you're a poor family trying to get by.
Sure. I didn't mean to make it sound like that extreme. I'm just saying that like $1,000 means a lot different to me than it would to somebody making, like 30 a year or 20 a year.
Right. I just that seems like a really big moral gray area you have.
I mean, I guess it's a little gray, yeah. But it's like gray in like, I don't know the exact distinction at which I would make this determination that a person loses their ethical or moral consideration, but it's way, way, way before breaking onto somebody's property. It's way, way, way before like getting in somebody's car and driving away with it. That wherever that line is, it's way before that. And that's what the conversation seemed like it was originally about. Like, is stealing like the lug nut off of somebody's car?
Well no, I expanded upon that because originally I thought it was about your family's life, but then you well,
that's
threw all that out.
Sure. Well, that's an important. Well, yeah, because we were expanding the conversation. Sure. Initially, and it seems like you agreed with that initially, that like the family life is one thing for like personal houses. And that's usually what I talk about when it comes to self-defense. But I do think that like you can extend that to personal property as well, or not extend that, but that the personal property argument is a separate, but also like life-threatening thing as well. Or I'm sorry, life-threatening, or like you lose your moral consideration for violating that as well.
But well, to be clear, by moral consideration, you mean they deserve to die. I mean,
yes,
is what you're saying.
Well, they don't have the right to live. Let me put it that way. There's a difference, a little bit of a difference, I think.
So okay, so I'm just curious, like, how many hours of work of your life is worth theirs?
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe 20 hours? I'm not sure. I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
20 hours of your life is worth theirs?
Yeah, maybe. Life is short, dude. It's precious time. 20 hours is a long fucking time. That's Wolfenstein plus Undertale, dude.
It seems like you're not reciprocating that, though.
But I absolutely would. You can't say that I'm being inconsistent or that I wouldn't reciprocate. Because, again, I will tell you, I would totally expect somebody to kill me if I was trying to steal their car or break into their house or break into their property. Okay, I would totally expect that.
But 20 hours worth of work, right? Mm-hmm. 20 hours worth of work, different to a lot of people, right? So 20 hours worth of work, you're somebody that's poor, earning minimum wage, you steal something of theirs that's worth 20, you might not personally perceive that to be of that much value, but to them, they had to work 24 hours for that. So they should be able to kill you.
Wait, what? Can you say that again?
Okay. So again, because of your wealth, obviously that at this point, right? Uh-huh. Or even if somebody grew up wealthy, you might perceive another person's possessions is not really worth that much. Like you can replace it a lot easier than they can, right? And you said, well, 20 hours of your life is worth theirs entirely. So reciprocate. I'm just saying. Well, like if you're hold on,
be careful, because like you're focusing like really hardcore like on the 20 hours thing. The important thing is how this time is removed from you, though. Is like if I spend 20 hours like helping somebody cross the street because I volunteer that as my time, like on every weekend or something. If I spend 20 hours doing that, that's not the same as spending 20 hours being enslaved forcibly by another person doing the same job. So if somebody takes 20 hours of work from you by stealing something, that's a lot different than just saying, well, you just have to work 20 more hours to get that back. I consider those things like weighted very, very, very differently.
Right. I really hope you don't think I'm trying to justify a person's actions by any means by stealing your property, right? I think we both agree they're subhuman. They should go to prison. It's a felony, right?
Well, the state should send them to prison, but an individual can only kill them.
Right. No, I don't disagree with you there. But again, I'm placing the burden on the individual to try to restrain or try to.
Well, I mean, I placed the burden on the moral agent that decided to infiltrate. There's another one I'm looking for. Disrespect the person's personal property in the first place. Like, that's the guy that's made the decision, the first decision that kind of sets everything off. Like,
but again, you're casting. You're basically saying he has the same morality you do. That he's going to, and of course, nobody breaking into your house is thinking of this moral consideration at this point. They're not thinking about the social contract and am I sacrificing my ability?
Sure, that's fine. But with my personal morals, I only consider other people that reciprocate them to me. I mean, everybody else doesn't get consideration, right?
No, right. But I'm saying that somebody else's morals might be different than yours.
Okay. Well, but I don't respect those people.
Okay, so no, here's my point.
Okay.
Steven, come on.
What?
Okay, so if you work...
Well, hold on. Well, just real quick. I'm not trying to be like smug, or I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be like snarky, but you're like, well, their morals might be different than yours. I mean, the morals of other people that might want to walk up and like stab me might be different than mine. Just because their morals are different than mine doesn't mean I give them special consideration.
Of course, you can't possibly believe that's the implication that I'm making when I say that their morals are different than yours.
Well, like if somebody breaks into your house, I don't really care what their morals are at that point. Like it doesn't matter to me that their morals are different. Like he's breaking into my house because he thinks I won't kill him. Like is that what you're trying to say there? Like justifies his action, or not justify? That's an unfair word, but like.
No. Okay, so somebody breaking into your house that has a different outlook on life and morality than you do might not perceive that action as life-threatening on either side. So they see you, they could immediately run away. They hear you, they could immediately run away. They could think the house is empty. But if you make no effort to even indicate that somebody's home and you just open a door and pop 5 shots into them, that to me seems morally reprehensible.
But it's not because I think that we can make a few basic, very basic, axiomatic philosophical assertions that there are things that you universally shouldn't do to another human being. And if you have a moral system that doesn't consider these very axiomatic things, then you probably don't deserve moral consideration. So like, whatever moral system you have, you should probably view breaking into somebody's house as being one of the worst things you can do. I don't agree that a person could break into your house and has some moral system where they're like, well, maybe this just isn't really that big of a deal, and the person will try to talk to me and I can run away or something. Like, I reject that notion.
I'm not trying to imply that at all. I'm not trying to imply like that they don't like see it as a big deal. But I'm trying to say that they might perceive it as a non-violent act, right? They might not see it as this.
When can you define when you say violent? What do you mean by violent?
Okay, so when somebody breaks into your house, right? They could not even know you're home. They could think you're gone. As soon as they see you, they could run.
Gotcha.
So that's what I'm trying.
I guess like when you impose on the autonomy of another person or their property, I would consider that like a violent philosophical action. Like that would be philosophically violent. So if I were to break into your house, if I were to damage your car, if I were to throw something, I would consider those to be like, or if I were to steal something, or like those are like violent, like philosophical actions to me. I feel like that's fairly universal.
Okay, I wouldn't disagree with that, but I'm saying that. So you don't see the social contract as like, okay, so if they break into my house, or if you violate any of somebody else's social contract, then it's all gone.
Well, not like any. Like if, for instance, if you go to shake somebody's hand and they like spit in their hand and then they shake your hand and that's like disrespectful, and I wouldn't do that to somebody. Like I don't have the right to like whip out the Glock and kill them. But we're talking about like what I would be considering like one of the highest crimes that you could commit. So I mean, like in that case, yeah, that death might be like a possible retribution for your action here. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I don't see it the same way. I think you're taking, possibly over half a century off somebody's life because they break into your house, and you think it's entirely morally justified.
So like, I guess like
20 hours.
Okay, so let me like
work off your.
Okay, hold on. You're using a lot of like. So let's watch the verbiage here. So if somebody breaks into my house and I kill them, I don't think it's so much that I'm taking 40 years off their life, but more so that when they break into somebody's house, they've put their life now on the table as something that can be bargained or haggled with. That when you make that decision, that you're going to break into somebody else's property, you have offered up your life as a possible exchange of your action. So I feel like there's a difference than like, I just feel like the words that you're using are very heavily weighted towards your conclusion that like, well, somebody breaks into your house, now you're taking their life. Well, they kind of offered it up to you in the process of doing that. Under my moral system, I would argue.
You're reframing it yourself. I mean, we're both doing that, just I think.
Well, so I think the way that I phrase it,
you're saying that they're offering up their life life to you, right?
To some extent,
nobody
yeah.
willingly offers their life to you. Nobody.
I mean, like,
does that.
but like, so like people that are involved in like heavy like drug trade shit, like recognize that like that's part of the gamble that they do, or like maybe people in. I don't want to say like military, because I guess nobody goes in the military expecting to die, but like I feel like you can engage in certain actions where you realize that, okay, well, this is something that I'm doing that is incredibly risky, and I understand that this is what I'm gambling here, right? If you're like a UFC fighter, MMA, or boxer, like you understand that by jumping into the ring, I'm acknowledging that this could happen to me if I do that, right? Much the same way that like if you break into somebody's house, you're acknowledging now that your life is one of the things that's kind of up for trade, that could be something that you could forfeit in doing so.
Right, and I'm just curious where you, because again, this is about your personal morality, where you draw that line, and again, I'm not trying to pin you down on that 20 hours. Like obviously, that's just a very loose, guesstimate. But like how much work to put into something? Is it worth taking somebody else's life for it?
I mean,
like if they open your car door and they steal, your cigarettes, right? That doesn't matter, much to you. But if somebody has a cigarette carton and they're working minimum wage, that carton probably matters a shit ton more, right? So are they morally justified in killing that person now?
Maybe. I don't know. Like, I regret giving the exact hours, because now I feel like you're just trying to weigh hours versus hours. Where, like, I would argue that, like, 20 hours working versus 20 hours taken from you are two totally different things. These are two entirely different things. In terms of, like, what does the value of property lost have to be? To, like, how valuable does it have to be to a person that, like I don't know. I'm not sure if any value there, or like breaking into the cars or makes it. I don't know. I would have to find like the exact line there. I'm not sure and I'll admit that I don't know like what the exact correct answer is there. But I would go back to what I said earlier, that like reaching in and taking somebody's cigarettes out of somebody's car is way past the line of like breaking into the car and stealing it, or catching somebody breaking into your car, being in your car going through your shit, or somebody breaking into your property.
Way before the line.
What?
Do you mean way before the line?
No, I mean like, or yeah, before the line. I'm sorry, yeah, way before the line, sure.
Okay, so I just still can't. I can't see where you're drawing that line of where they're taking your personal property justifies doing that, because so they can steal stuff out of your car. But what if your laptop's in there?
Or it could be in there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think. I mean, like, again, like I would say, like, if you have like a reasonable like chance of like making them fuck off, I mean, isn't there a term that's like nice but not necessary? I mean, you should probably do that if you're like a somewhat moral person, I guess. You give them the option to not die.
That's what I'm asking you, because again, what's your morality? Do you feel you have any moral obligation to try to get them to go away?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. I would have to think about it a long time. I'm not sure.
All right, because I mean that's basically what it, in my opinion, this entire argument was about, was that single thing. I just feel like you do have an obligation to try to get them off of your property before taking lethal force.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be nice. I think that the person would be really nice to do it.
Well, of course it would be nice, but again, I'm talking about your morality, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't really know. Like if somebody said that like they found someone in their backyard like breaking into their shit and they shot them from their window or whatever.
Right, I wouldn't crucify that person either, and I wouldn't say they're an immoral person either, because of course everybody understands that your adrenaline is rushing. You have no idea.
No, I'm not even saying. I'm pretending we're perfect. We can pretend we're perfect moral agents for these arguments that are hyper rational at all points in time. That a person goes to their window, sees somebody is breaking onto their property and stealing their shit. Like if that person took out a rifle and shot the person on their property, that
so in your opinion that they're perfectly morally justified in doing that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Why is it that a personal possession holds so much value?
Because it's your shit. It's your shit, dog. It's your personal.
I get it's I get it's that it is your shit, dog. I just for somebody who's pro-life, I just feel like.
Well, pro-life. Whoa! A fetus didn't do anything to deserve to die. That's a totally different meme, dog. That's way different. Calm down.
Well, okay. I'm not trying to conflate those two things. My point is that you value life, correct?
As long as it reciprocates to me, yes. That's like the big meme, right? People call it social contract.
Again, the problem is you're saying that they don't reciprocate your value to life because they want to steal some of your property.
Yeah. Maybe? Yeah.
How can you make that connection?
Because stealing somebody's shit is the worst thing you can do. I feel like we've already come here.
I just don't see how. I don't think you've justified it.
I'm curious. I'm really curious. Okay, I'm just curious what your answer. I'm curious what your answer is. Let's say that you know that somebody's going to walk up and they're going to punch you as hard as they can in the face, but it's not life-threatening. It'll never kill you, right? But you know that somebody's going to walk up to you and punch you in the face, okay? And you're too small to keep this person from doing it. Do you think you have a right to kill that person? Or do you think you just take the punch?
I mean, personally, I think you should take the punch, but...
Well, no, like morally or ethically. If somebody says, like, I know this person's going to come do this, can I kill this person or do you just take the punch?
Morally, I think you should take the punch.
Okay. I would argue that you should kill the person in that world. So maybe this is like the difference, I guess, is that okay, hold on. Let me pull back, okay? Because I think I understand your point, and you can tell me if we agree on this or disagree on this, right? It sounds like what you're saying is that for somebody to earn the punishment of death from you, and I don't say punishment in a stately sense, but for somebody to lose all moral consideration, they must lose all moral consideration for you. That if a person is breaking into your property, that doesn't mean that they don't respect your ability to live. It doesn't mean that they want to kill you or give you no moral consideration. It just means they want to steal your shit. So for you to revoke everything from that person just because they're breaking onto your property, that's a totally unfair way to evaluate their moral consideration. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I would say so.
Yeah, okay. I guess I just disagree with that. I don't think that it has to move exactly in degrees like that. I think that there are certain lines that you cross with another person, and once you've crossed those lines, you can cross lines where you throw away almost everything. So here's a more difficult question to ask, and I'm not trying to make these loaded. Let's say that somebody comes up to you and you know they're going to rape you, but there's 0% chance that they're going to kill you, and they're not going to like physically hurt you. Say they have a small penis. I don't know what make this hypothetical work. They're not really going to leave any lasting physical harm, but they're even going to wear a condom. They don't have STDs or whatever, right? But they are going to walk up and rape you. That's going to happen. Do you think that? And they don't want you to die or anything like that. They have no chances of hurting you or long-term damage or anything like that, right? Do you think that you are morally obligated to let them rape you? Or if you have to kill them to stop them, do you kill them to stop them?
I mean, I guess that's where the tables would turn in my head, because of course I would agree with you at that point.
But why? If they're still not, they're not revoking everything. They're not going to try to hurt you at all. They're not going to choke you or cause any physical damage. As much as, God, Jesus, fuck, don't clip this and say like, oh, so you think you can rape people, it doesn't hurt at all. But like as much as you possibly can, like in any perfect hypothetical, right? That they're not revoking your right to life. They still respect your right to life or anything, right? But if that person was walking up and they were going to rape you, right? I imagine that you would probably say like, well, no, I'm going to kill this person before they do that, even if I know they're not going to kill me or hurt me at all, right?
But I guess maybe I would shift it more towards bodily autonomy, right? So I guess
sure, but not necessarily body autonomy, because the punching one is kind of bodily autonomy too, right?
No, it's exactly the same. So I guess I would change my opinion on that as well, because I mean, obvious, just the logical.
Sure. So like So I think the difference here between you and me is that I have in my head there, and maybe I should enumerate on this more in the future or expand on this more in the future. In my head, there are certain actions you can do that cause you to forfeit a large amount of your individual liberties. That once you commit these actions, you're way over the line of moral consideration. And that you have that list too in your head, but in your head, that list is far shorter in things that you would consider like this is of a certain gravity that you forfeit your right to life. Would you agree with that, you think?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just from the way that you described your set of
Sure.
revoking that.
So we just disagree on what crimes, I guess, endow somebody with the right to die. And I agree that I guess mine can be arbitrary and that drawing the exact line is really hard. But now, so like now that I've kind of got you in the rape thing, I could probably start to find gray areas with you too. Like for instance, if somebody walks up and slaps your ass, you probably wouldn't think you should kill them, right?
Not at all, but I mean, you,
But if somebody walks up and like grabs your boob, probably still not. What if they walk up and grab your vag, or they start shoving fingers in you? Like I could find like some gray area here where I'm like, okay, right.
well, there would be a line, right? The line is definitely somewhere.
But you wouldn't. But defining that exact line would be really really hard, right?
No, of course, and I can see why you can't just draw it either, right? Like I'm not trying to press you to draw like, okay, like this many hours is worth taking their life, or this much money, or etc. I'm trying to argue that there's some obligation of, can I prevent this from happening, right? And I think that you're not considering that in the slightest. Just
Feed Nathan.
You have no obligation to try and prevent it from happening.
Yeah, I guess like maybe one of the big differences is that, and I hate calling this social contract because sometimes people email me and tell it that it's not technically social contract, right? But I guess like the thing is that the way that I extrapolate the way that I derive all of my morals or ethics from my basic kind of assumptions are, I always do it in a self-interested way. So I don't necessarily think that it is another person's right or responsibility to protect the rights of another person for the sake of that person, that we do everything in a reciprocated manner. So I protect your rights because I want my rights to be protected, or I champion these people because I want them in a future scenario to advocate for me, that this is what I do. But I don't believe in any kind of natural law. I don't believe in any kind of divine rights, or that anybody's endowed by rights by a greater power or anything. That all of it is, we're just animals and we reciprocate, and that's where things come from. So like I feel like the foundation of your argument, and this might be unfair of me to say, but it sounds like we come at this from a fundamentally different point of view, because you're coming at it from the point of view that people are endowed with certain rights that are intrinsic to them, and that for them to lose those rights, they have to do something of a particular gravity that causes them to lose them. Whereas for me, my rights all come from the reciprocation of other people. And if you perform an action that makes it look like you're not reciprocating rights that I consider to be very, very, very important, then I just don't reciprocate anything to you. And intrinsically, you're worthless to me, if that makes sense. I think that's like kind of the distinction. Sorry, I'm gish-galloping a little bit.
It just sounds like a huge leap. It just sounds like, it's to me, because you said yourself, there are certain things, even philosophically, that you can argue, right, without any sort of God, that you have rights as a human aside from government. The government isn't providing those rights. So what are those rights if not life?
Well, wait, can you say that one more time? What do you mean by that? I'm sorry, can you repeat that or rephrase that?
So you said that there were rights that you're granted, that you can be granted from a philosophical viewpoint.
Oh wait, okay, I'm sorry. So let me explain on this a little more, or be very clear. I don't think that intrinsically humans have any rights. I don't think that naturally we have anything like that. I think that all of those are, that it's all of your rights are just it's a social construct that comes from other people. Whatever rights you have or what other people decide that you have is pretty much it. That I don't think there's any type of higher anything, not necessarily godlike, but any type of higher intrinsic, universal, spiritual, deity, whatever.
Right. So when you said before that there are rights people are granted from philosophy, that was that meaningless?
Well, wait. What do you mean by that? I'm sorry. Can you?
Okay, because before you were arguing that you could argue that there are things that are granted to you from a philosophical standpoint that's greater than government. I was curious what you meant by that, if not things such as a right to life.
Fuck, I would have to remember the context of where I said that. Well, like, I mean, I don't think that like your rights come from government. If like it comes from something.
No, of course, that was the point. But I think that you do have a right to life. And again, of course, it can be forgiven at some point. But I just see you drawing that line.
Where do you think that right to life comes from? Or so I'm curious. Where do you think it comes from?
Well, again, I see humans having such a high value, like a right to life,
Yeah, but like, where does that
It's
right, like
really-
your right to life, like where does that come from? Somebody tells you, like, why does this person have a right to live?
Well, I'm a bit of a speciesist, I guess you could say. I haven't, necessarily gone deep into the philosophical
Sure, I
axioms.
understand, sure.
Just-
So for me, like, I would say that, like, this person, to me, I think that he has a right to live because I want to live and I want him to respect my right to live. So I reciprocate these rights onto him, hoping that he'll do the same for me because both of us are self-interested. But that's where all of the rights come from. It's a matter of reciprocation.
Okay, so your entire moral structure is based off of selfishness and self-interest.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I guess that's just where we differ.
Sure. But then maybe but you can understand that then if you understand that moral system, that the analysis of the breaking into somebody's property, why that would change how I would view that, I guess. I'm not asking you to agree with it, but I guess you can understand why I would have that point of view.
I absolutely see where you're coming from. And I think I always did, and I was just trying to push you further, but I guess you just, have a different outlook on life that, if somebody doesn't have your self-interest in their self-interest, then
They get
at
the
some
Glock.
point they do lose a right to life.
Sure.
Yeah, you get the Glock. So, yeah. So that's a
Philosophical difference. Sure.
question that I'm not equipped to have.
Okay. Well, if I'm barely equipped to have it too. So if you research it into a little bit, you could probably find a bunch of great ways that I'm inconsistent. So if you ever do, feel free to come back and tell me why I'm wrong, and then I'll think about it some more.
Well, I'll talking to you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm sorry for delaying so long. Thanks for the conversation, buddy.
You're good. Ripperino, Pappuccino, Cappuccino.
Don't ever fucking steal my memes. Get the fuck out of here.